Hi, welcome to another edition of Windows IT Pro Insider. I'm Sean Deuby, Technical Director for Windows IT Pro. We have here Mike Otey.
I'm Senior Technical Director for Windows IT Pro Magazine, SQL Server Magazine, and to my right is Jeff.
I'm Jeff James, Industry News Analyst for Windows IT Pro.
We are ensconced in a conference room in Microsoft on campus in Building 41, where we just finished up a couple of days with a hands-on workshop all about System Center 2012 and its work with Microsoft Private Cloud. It's been a very interesting couple of days.
It's a lot to cover. I was amazed at how big the workshop was. It was overloading to your brain for sure.
Well, it was definitely reminiscent of the Server 8 workshop.
Mm-hmm.
It
Right
wasn't
before build, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't quite the stunning experience that the Server 8 workshop was, which is not to take anything away from this. This was still a very impressive workshop. That was just, and the fact actually that these two back-to-back have been so impressive in their products, and that's certainly one of the takeaways for me in this, is how impressive what we've seen in the last couple of days has been.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a big year for Microsoft. I think you're going to see this new release of System Center 2012. It's got a lot of new features in it. We're going to see Server 8 later on down the road.
Yep.
We're going to see SQL Server 2012. It's going to be, there's a lot of major releases coming out of Microsoft these days.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Windows 8 on top of that.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of, well, it's not disruption, but there's a lot of stuff to learn.
Mhm.
You know, I think one of the key themes of System Center, like last year, was all about here's an introduction to some of the 2012 components that are just starting to come out in beta. Here's some of the cool things that they can do. But System Center was still a bunch of individual pieces. And this has all been all about here's how these products work together, in particular Virtual Machine Manager, which is a misnamed product now, if I've ever heard one.
Right, yeah, I'd agree with that.
Orchestrator and Service Manager, plus the new component. What's it? Application.
Is it Application Manager?
App Controller?
App Controller.
Controller, yeah.
App Controller.
And that's got all the new Abbey code
Right.
stuff that really digs into applications and provides a lot of detail.
Right.
Yeah, there is a lot of information to digest and a lot of new products. I don't know. What struck you as some of the biggest stuff that you saw here at the workshop?
Well, one of the things that struck me is, a couple of years ago, you and I had sat down with Paul Maritz from VMware, and he was talking about how eventually his vision is to see IT as a service where you can essentially like take, just like with electricity, you plug into the outlet on the wall, and that's how the service is delivered.
Mm-hmm.
And this latest version of System Center really provides a lot of the capability that moves us closer to what Paul Maritz was talking about. Maybe it's going to be a couple years down the road, but the ability to take different virtualization platforms, whether it's if you virtualize with ESX Server or Hyper-V or Xen. System Center 2012 will now abstract all that together, and you can use them all in a very heterogeneous environment. So, we're taking steps in that direction, I think.
Right. What about you, Sean?
Well, I was just thinking about what you were talking about, and I was talking with Sean Christensen about this, is how complex IT is and how it's taken so long for us to get to this point where we are becoming more service-oriented, where you push a button and things happen. And because now we have layers of abstraction, between the top level user interface of System Center 2012 and the bare metal, how many layers of abstraction are there to make all of this actually work? The smoke and mirrors, as it was. But for all that, my takeaway was, and admittedly, this was a lab, and they set it to work the lab up, although I don't think they had really done enormous amounts to simplify it for us, was how easy it was to work with the products. If you could take, the takeaway that I got from it is, if I had a hypervisor host, whether it be Hyper-V or ESX or Xen, doesn't matter, and a little time, and this product suite, which by the way is now sold as an integrated it's not a product suite anymore. I don't know what they're calling it, but they're calling them components. They're not calling them individual products.
Right, right.
and bring that suite of components in, and you can build yourself a private cloud pretty quickly. I mean, not a production cloud or anything like that, but you can put up a cloud for testing, for kick the tires, bring customers in, and start doing things with it. It looks like within a day or two, which is pretty amazing.
Certainly with what they provided us here, we were able to build clouds, to use cloud components very quickly. Of course, they did set up the infrastructure on the back end. But, you were talking about the changes in SKUs a little while ago.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain a little bit about how
sure.
that
Basically
works?
what's happening is, before the System Center family used to be, Microsoft was almost trying to brand all those different products individually, and it really led to a lot of confusion. I mean, you look at the System Center product roadmap for 2011, there's a dozen different products kind of featured on that page. But what Microsoft's done with System Center 2012 is they've essentially taken all those components and made them aspects or parts of or features of System Center 2012 and really reduced the SKU count just to, a basic or standard edition and a data center edition. And that's really simplified licensing to the extreme. It was really funny. And
hallelujah moment.
Yeah, it was very funny because Garth Fort from Microsoft was giving us a presentation in this reviewers workshop, and he showed a slide of the complexity of the old System Center licensing, and it looked like something that a Minotaur would get lost in. I mean, very Byzantine and very confusing.
Well, and he started enumerating all of them. You can have with this, and you can have with this,
it was
and
scary.
that, and everybody's eyes are starting to roll up in their head.
Yeah, but the new version is, just those 2 SKUs. It'll make it a lot easier. I think it'll, save a lot of headaches for a lot of people.
Right. So you can no longer buy individual components of the System Center. Instead, you get the entire suite. And one of the differences that he was outlining was they tend to follow the Windows Server editions. And so for a lightly virtualized environment, you'd go with the standard SKU, and then for a more heavily virtualized environment, you'd go with the data center SKU, where there was support for unlimited virtual machines to manage.
Yeah, I do have to temper my earlier remarks about how easy it is to throw together a private cloud. Is because one of the things that you have to do is you actually have to install all the System Center components, and that is a non-trivial exercise. I mean,
that's true.
If you're going to do it purely for testing, sure, you can shoehorn. Purely for testing, you could shoehorn Virtual Machine Manager and Orchestrator and Service Manager. Maybe you could put them all on a VM, and get to and have a SQL server either there or point to another SQL server for the database and play with it. But for a real production installation, we're talking multiple machines, multiple locations. Once that's in place, then you'll have a lot of flexibility as far as what you can do with it.
Right.
So, but I really see, because you get the whole kit and caboodle with this license. It's a very nice scenario to send someone off and say, here, go play with Orchestrator now, and the way it works with these things. We've got the product. We paid for it. Let's try it out.
Yeah, there are some new capabilities that are pretty interesting. Of course, with Virtual Machine Manager, you mentioned it probably ought not be called that anymore, because now it is basically the tool to build private clouds. And there is a button, as you mentioned, that you said click it says Create Cloud, and you've got one.
Yeah, that's funny. I could see T-shirts from Microsoft with that giant logo with a Create Cloud on it. I mean, that would be something they could give out an MMS.
Kind of like You Are Here or something like that.
But there are other capabilities too, like you said. Was it Avicode that's now been incorporated into Operations Manager? There's a new app controller for rolling out applications. There's the Service Manager component, which you can use to create service requests, and it's tied into Operations Manager. It seems like, and Orchestrator for automating workflows and runbooks.
I have to say, myself and frankly most IT pros don't spend any time with workflow. There's an approval process. Oh yeah, you got to send it to him. Don't forget to email it to him. And it's not necessarily highly formalized. It's just kind of part of the company culture, or maybe it's a little more for operationally. There's a run book that's sheets of paper and stuff.
Right.
But this Orchestrator, you can take that run book, that sheet of paper, and click, drag, input, type in what you want the thing to do, etc., 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 and go. And all of a sudden, you have just automated some of the stuff that you had always done by hand, which is, I suppose, the double-edged sword. It's very cool from a high-level point of view that you'll be able to get things done quickly. However, the person that was the one that did the data collection and sent the emails and things like that might want to look at learning PowerShell or something like that, so.
Yeah.
That was one of the interesting things to me. That I had not really been exposed to Orchestrator before and seen its Visio-like drag and drop interface where you can put the different components of your workflow together, have logical branches going between them, and you do it all with no coding.
Right.
It was pretty interesting. But on the other hand, there's certainly an amount of there is complexity to these products. They were very deep.
Yeah.
I mean, we were here for a day and a half, and you could tell that you really only scratched the surface of a lot of this stuff.
Right. One of the questions that I asked one of the PMs, because I was going through the approval process of one of the particular areas, and it was a little bit confusing because you had to go here and you go here, and I was looking for a big button that said approve.
Right.
And this was kind of on the IT Pro side as you're setting these things up in the workflow, and you could do things like what percentage of consensus you needed to have to get the workflow approved, comments when you had it done and all that sort of thing. And I said, where is the big approve button? He said, I said, imagine I'm a middle level manager and I wanted to approve this request. This is pretty complicated to go do this. And he said, oh no, this isn't for the manager. This isn't, the manager's is over here in the self-service portal, the web interface. And all the font is really large, and the arrows that say go are here, and there was literally a big approve button there, so you couldn't mistake what was going on. So,
yeah, I personally, I did find the service manager side of it the more complicated side but in part that's, in all fairness, because I wasn't very familiar with it. This is my first exposures to it, really.
yeah, I was doing some UI wandering. I mean, because you feel a little bit at sea when the familiar interface isn't there, and you're trying to figure out where to go with stuff. But it's just a matter of experience, I think. So it should be interesting. I think MMS will be another big splash, like it was last year. I think it will be this year. I have no idea what the release dates are, but I'm sure they're trying to get some stuff out the door as quickly as possible. For that.
You would imagine there would be some synchronicity there. They try to tie those two
Right.
together, but we don't know for sure.
We'll find out.
Did you remember any of the statistics that Brad Anderson was tossing out about the penetration of System Center vis-a-vis Windows Server management?
Well, one thing he
and all
did
that
say
sort
that
of
was interesting, and maybe you guys can remember this better than I can, but I think he had said that out of all their System Center customers, 20% were managing Linux servers as well. Was that a...
thing? Yeah.
Yeah, he did
I
say
thought that
that
was pretty amazing, because System Center can almost genuinely say now that it is managing, it's a truly heterogeneous management suite. And
Right.
you can do a lot with it.
I believe he mentioned that of companies with over 500 PCs, that they were doing, or System Center was managing 50% of those.
Right.
Wow.
So it was the most popular Windows infrastructure management tool around.
Well, and of course, he couldn't resist but for putting two and two together. Because he said, okay, so if we're managing 50% of the Windows environments out there, that's, 10 bajillion instances. And if if 20% of those are managing non-Windows systems, he said that probably makes us the biggest non-Windows management system out there.
Right.
I don't know. That would be a
interesting stats.
difficult thing to prove, but intriguing.
Yeah, food for thought. So
So this was a good couple days.
Right.
Another one of those information through a fire hose that we love so well.
There's a lot to learn, and it just goes to show you this private cloud thing. It's really going to happen. I mean, it's definitely the future direction for IT, I would think.
Yeah, I agree.
If I had to, the things that I'm walking away with on here is number one, I need to install VMM 2012 and play with that. Although I can only do a small fraction. Like I don't have a SAN in my house like you probably do, but SANs,
A small one.
SANs,
It's just little.
SANs and clusters, and to start paying a little more attention to Orchestrator and the workflows and all of that, because I think, and I think for IT pros also in general, that's a great unknown. The way I keep describing this as, I always look at things in layers, just like an ISO model, and at the bottom of the layer is the hardware, which we all understand, and then there's virtualization up there, and everybody's pretty good with that, and then we start to enter this gray no man's land, and at the top is a self-service portal, and we can all understand the concept of a self-service portal. But it's this area in between that is I won't use the word cloudy, but is the gray area.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I would like to, I look at it like this, and it's like it's the next step beyond virtualization. So instead of just virtualizing single machines where you can take those machines, move them between hosts with vMotion or live migration, instead of just managing them all separately, what this whole cloud thing, the private cloud and what VMM allows you to do is to take groups of those different virtual machines, groups that work together as a single application. So like your SQL Server backend might be one VM, your web tier might be another one, you know, your web front end, and then you might have another one that has your business logic in it. And those three work together. They don't work separately, so they all form parts of the application. And when you create a service, it basically binds all of those things together and allows you to manage them and deploy them as a group.
Yeah. It astonishes me that it even works at all. Because when you think about, I was just mentally adding up layers of abstraction as you're talking about that, you know, and there's at least 6 or more layers of abstraction between the user and the hardware to make any of this work and have it all work successfully. And if the System Center development crowd, and I've not played with the products, so I don't know how reliable they've been, if they're anywhere near as reliable as the Server 8 stuff that came out, it's really going to be pretty cool.
Well, when you were mentioning the abstraction layer, I thought of that Dilbert comic strip where where someone has an idea and there's like a cloud in the middle and it says profit at the end. So, but in reality, though, you know, it seems like Microsoft is really working through that. You know, what you just mentioned, the gray area. I mean, it's definitely happening, and a lot of IT pros who are really concerned about the public cloud and, you know, having resources being moved that way. I mean, this is a great way it's a great alternative, and it's a great way for them to kind of push back from what their CFO might be telling them. So,
well, you know, and they had the technical product managers that were in there talking with us, helping us out. And like, for example, Sean Christensen said, yeah, I've been in this business, this specific area of workflows and all this stuff for 17 years.
Wow.
Now that's some deep experience. And Claire Henry, who is helping run all of this and supervise all of this, she's the woman that wrote Moth for Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they have some serious deep knowledge on how all this stuff goes.
sure.
Yeah. One of the things that differentiates this from what I've seen with VMware is that where they're monitoring functions, they have knowledge about the applications themselves.
Right.
So they have smarts about, they have the management packs that work with SQL Server, that work with Exchange, and so they're deeply embedded in what's going on and what they're managing out there. And I think that's an important differentiator as businesses look at how these clouds are put together and how to manage them.
Yeah.
Well, good.
It's a lot of impressive stuff. I'm sure, you know, we've all crashed a lab or two. Maybe we can go back and do it again.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, they were telling us, don't bring down the VM that was running Virtual Machine Manager.
Yeah. Yeah, we were in a shared lab, and they were telling us not to go through and turn off everyone else's VM so we get priority. So we were good citizens.
Yeah. Well, good.
All right.
Good stuff. See everybody next time.
Yep, thanks.